And on that note, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for Mother's Day. Thank you for our moms. Thank you for how you've gifted them. And Lord, we just ask that as we look at your word today and we celebrate moms, that you'd open your word anew to us, that you would show us your truths in a deeper way, Lord. I ask that your Holy Spirit would fall upon this service, upon this message, God, that your words would be heard. Lord, we thank you once again for a precious gift that we call mom. In Christ. Amen. A second grade teacher had spent the entire period, the science period, the day before, talking about magnets. She had demonstrated magnets. She'd taken the magnet out, picked up different objects with the magnet. Kids were very much into the magnet history, etc. So she had confidence about the test she was going to give the next day. Next day, she gave the test, and the question, one of the questions on the test was, my full name has 6 letters. The first one is M. I pick up things. What am I? She was shocked to find that 50% of her students put mother instead of magnet. Why do mothers put up with all of the kinds of things we saw in that video? Why do mothers put up with our cranky attitudes? Anybody ever get cranky? Why do mothers put up with our leaving our clothes, various items, in all different kinds of places? Underwear on the lampshades. I mean, come on! Why do moms put up with the mess? Why is it the mom in the middle of the night when the child is throwing up in bed? Why is it the mom who is up cleaning? Not that dads don't ever do that. But why is it that the moms decide are the ones that seem to always put up with what their children or their husbands are throwing at them? Because moms are special, aren't they? Moms are different. Moms, the true mother, is someone we honor, someone we respect, someone we love. Our memory verse is a little unusual for us today, Proverbs 4:3. But I chose it because of the wording. It says, for I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. How many of you have had moms? Okay. Do you feel cherished? Did you feel cherished? We're going to be talking today about a true mother. A true mother may not be the primary caregiver. A true mother may not be the one who's home all the time because of economic reasons or whatever. That's not what makes them a true mom. A true mother has different kinds of traits. Biologically, most women can one day become mothers. But we're not talking biology here. We're not talking about just the physical capability of giving birth. What we're talking about here is what makes a mom, a mother, a true mom, a true mother. Some women can't have biological children. Yet, through either the miracle of adoption or through loving service to others, they somehow manage to still be true moms, right? I know my father, his mom died giving birth to him. And so his dad was kind of at a loss. I mean, I've got to work, I've got a newborn son, what do I do? And so he turned to his wife's parents. And my dad, for the first 7 years, lived with his grandparents. And you got to picture this situation. Here is a woman who has lost her daughter. And lost her daughter giving birth to this child who is now in the home. And yet, my great-grandmother didn't hold that against my father. My great-grandmother became my father's true mom. True mother. When, at the age of 7, when my grandfather got remarried and took his young son to live with this new woman, that mom became his true mom. My grandmother. Not biological, not related, but she became his true mom. My father was blessed with not just one, but 2 true mothers in his life. People who loved him passionately, who sacrificed for him. What a blessing. So what makes a woman a true mother? Above all, I believe the ability comes from God. Even if the woman is not a Christian, even if the woman never acknowledges her Creator, I believe that the traits of true motherhood come from God. They're divinely designed and given to them. Because God designed women to have an incredible capacity to nurture, to care for, and to love others. Don't get me wrong. Guys have these traits too in many ways. Guys can care for others, etc. But just as guys and girls are different physically, they're different emotionally, and they're designed differently at a fundamental level. And no matter how wonderful a man is, he is never going to replace a mom. Because a mom is a mom is a mom. Right? Yesterday, my grandson Elijah was dropped off to be babysat at our house because his mom and his dad had gone to the mall. And I noticed that I was going to have to go someplace, and I was about to leave, and I noticed that Elijah was down the hall, and he was trying to get into our bedroom. And I said, "What are you doing? No, you can't do that." And he's looking at me like, yeah, he wants to, and I figured it out. See, Joyce was gone, and Sasha were gone to the store, and Elijah was looking for Grandma. If he couldn't have Mom, he was sure going to have Grandma. And it wasn't Grandpa he wanted. And so I had to finally, because he was getting really upset, I had to open the door and say, "Look, Grandma's not here. I'm sorry." He kind of shuffles to the living room, looks around a little bit, looks up at me. If I have to have you, I'll take you. Made me feel real special. Because there's no one like a mom, or in that case, a grandma, right? No one like them. Dads, we have our place. Grandpas, we have our place. Especially when the wallet is involved. But there's something about a mom. True mom. Various women in the Bible model the God-given traits of a true mother. Unfortunately, too many traits to cover in our time today, but there are some big ones that I want to really get into. The first one is that a mother responds to a call. A mother responds to a calling. Most women can have children, we say, But a true mother has a calling, even if her motherhood may seem accidental. Right now, Netflix is doing a remake of the Anne of Green Gables series by Lucy Maud Montgomery. Lucy Maud Montgomery was a Canadian writer, and Anne of Green Gables is her most famous series. And in this series, if you're unfamiliar with it, you have this orphan by the name of Anne. And she ends up going to live with a couple, a brother and sister who are older, named Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert. Now, Marilla Cuthbert at one time was, in a relationship with this guy, but ended up being rejected. He ended up marrying someone else. Marilla never got married. Developed a personality that was pretty stern in many ways and tough, self-reliant. And when Anne came to live with them, they had been expecting a boy. They were bringing a boy to live with them because they needed help on the farm. Marilla was not going to be a mom. That was in the past. And yet, this willful, imaginative child who caused immense trouble became Marilla's daughter. Not biologically, but Marilla was her mom. Marilla, throughout the series, if you read it or you watch the shows, you see Marilla really, really latching on. Sometimes reluctantly, but latching on to becoming a real mom to Anne. Because it's a calling. It's a calling that maybe sometimes a mom is not even aware of, but it's a calling. And often that calling is first seen in a woman's fervent desire to even be a mom, to be a mother. In the Bible, we saw Hannah. Hannah was in a situation where she was sharing her husband with another wife, and this other wife was having kids, but Hannah couldn't have any. And Hannah wanted desperately to be a mom. Desperately to be a mom. And so we see in 1 Samuel 1, 10 through 20, we see one time they're at the temple, and in her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. And she kept on praying to the Lord. Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. And Eli, he thought she was drunk, and said to her, how long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. Not so, my Lord, Hannah replied. I'm a woman who is deeply troubled. I've not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I've been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. Eli answered, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you've asked of him. She said, may your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. Early the next morning they arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home at Ramah. Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. In Hebrew, the word Samuel sounds like the Lord heard. Here's a woman who had a call in her life to be a mom. She was willing even to give up her child because of that calling, because she had a deep, deep desire to be a mother. In obedience, she gave her son back to God. But even if the child remained with his or her mother, the ultimate goal ultimately is this for us: giving the child back to God. That's what a true mother does. A true mother gives her child back to God. Susanna Wesley was a woman like that. Susanna Wesley, the mother of John and Charles Wesley, who founded Methodism, who became these spiritual giants out there in the Christian world. Susanna Wesley was a woman determined to give her children back to God. She had 19 kids. You think that's big? She was the baby of 25. Back in that time, children oftentimes didn't live. Many children died. Of the 19 children that Susanna Wesley had, only 10 lived out of infancy. So she lost 9. But these 10, she was determined to raise up to love God. Now, as a young girl, she was deeply religious, and as a young girl, she had felt that, well, you know, if I can spend an hour of time in my day in entertainment, reading books or whatever, surely I can give God an hour of prayer. And so she tried to carry this throughout her life, but as a mother, she was busy. I mean, moms in this room, are you ever busy? Imagine not having dishwashers, not having washing machines, not having microwaves, not having the conventional ovens, etc., and having to do all that, plus take care of 10 kids. Susanna Wesley was busy. Okay? She was so busy, in fact, you'd think, well, maybe the prayer goes aside. No, Susanna Wesley said, if I'm this busy, I need more prayer. And so she devoted 2 hours a day to prayer. Of course, everything's happening around her, etc. And you may know the story that Susanna Wesley, as kids are here and doing various things, and she's great at assigning jobs, by the way, going around, she decides the only way that she can, in the midst of this, get her 2 hours in is if she takes her apron and throws it over her head and prays. And she instructs her kids, Mom has the apron over her head, do not disturb her. And that's what she did. She sat in the middle of the chaos with the apron over her head and prayed for her children. So determined that her children have a good education and be raised up in the right way that she even defied her husband, she defied church authorities, etc., to continue to teach her children. At one point, her husband was off ministering someplace else, and they had assigned, he was pastor, and they had assigned another pastor to take his place in the pulpit, and he was not very good. So Susanna Wesley took her husband's sermons and others, and she would sit in the kitchen and she would just read them aloud to her children. Pretty soon, other people started coming to listen to Susanna Wesley read these sermons aloud. The other pastor, of course, got jealous, and he complained. He complained even to Susanna's husband, who said, "You might want to stop this." He said, "Actually, stop it." She wouldn't. Why? Because the children's spiritual upbringing was more important. She was willing to go against anything to make sure that her kids got spiritual training. Even up into her deathbed, when she was sick and in bed, John and Charles would travel to sit at their mother's feet and to listen to her and have her pray for them and counsel them, etc. And both would say that she was the greatest spiritual influence in their lives. A true mother responds to a calling. A true mother is willing to give back that child to God and direct them to God. Direct them to God. A true mother not only will go through hard times like this and to ensure that her child has the best possible, but the mother will also brave death. A true mother will brave death. You know, all of us are born with a self-preservation instinct. But a true mother will put her life on the line for her child. Moses' mother is a perfect example of this. Moses' mother was in a situation where Pharaoh had put out an edict because the children of Israel were getting too numerous. Put out an edict that said all male children had to be killed. If a midwife delivered a boy baby, she had to kill it. Girl baby could live. Well, we pick up this story then in Exodus 2, 1 through 10. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman. And she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying. She felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, convenient that she was right there, right? "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Now we see that story. It's a very familiar story, but I want you to think of the mom. The mom has her back against the wall, right? The mom, if she's discovered that she has done this, she'll be killed. But the mom is willing to risk death to save her child. She's even willing to go to this incredible amount of trickery just to save her child. James Lawson left his wife, Patsy Lawson, and their 2 children, 5-year-old girl, 2-year-old son. Drove down the hill from his home in Running Springs, California, to go to work. His wife and the 2 kids would be following soon after. Patsy was a 5th grade teacher, and they were going to drop off the kids, etc. But then later on, he discovered that his wife had never shown up for work. Went back, retraced the steps, finally found the car had gone off the cliff. Gone down into the water, was upside down in the water. As he's scrambling down, he almost he thinks he's hearing his dying wife's cries. He runs there and he finds that he's too late. His daughter's dead. His wife is dead. But his son is alive. But how? Car's submerged in water. There's only a little bit of air at the top. And he finds his wife in a death embrace, holding that child up to get air. They estimate that she had been there for 8.5 hours. Her body is almost completely frozen in the 43-degree water, holding that baby up, making sure that baby lives. A mother will brave death for her child. A true mother. Not all mothers are like that, unfortunately. We hear the news, I read the news about these moms who are abusing children, who abandon their children in trash cans. You hear of mothers sometimes even killing their kids. But thankfully, there are still many true mothers out there. True mothers will do a lot of things. They respond to this calling. They brave death, and they risk humiliation. A mother will risk humiliation for her child. You ever been embarrassed by your mom? When you were 12, 13, 14, you know. Mom takes you to the mall someplace. Hey, Mom, yeah, you go shopping over there, and why didn't you let me off here? And I'll go. Why? I can't be seen with my mom. I'm too cool for that. My friends might see me, you know. That relate anybody? Yeah, I'm hearing some snickers, of course. Right. Did you ever think of how humiliating that must be for your mom? To know that her child is embarrassed by her? Now, moms are smart. They've been that age too. But still, it must be like for moms oftentimes to be humiliated in that way because their children are too embarrassed to be seen. But a true mother is going to risk humiliation if it means the betterment of her child. Matthew 15, 21 through 28. We hear in this passage, leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman came from that vicinity, came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. Now we look at that passage, and oftentimes we're confused by it. We say, "Oh, wow, that's pretty harsh. Jesus is calling her a dog. I mean, come on. You know, what's going on here?" You know, when my wife and I, well, our whole family, when we were missionaries in Africa, we saw something interesting. In Senegal, there are lots of different people groups, and two of the bigger ones are the Wolof, who tend to be pretty much dominant, and the Serer. And before colonial times, the Wolof were pretty much the masters. The Serer were a conquered people and were their slaves. Later on, when the French came in, they established a colonial peace. All these different tribal groups had to learn to get along. But there's some tensions that obviously are still there and some memories, etc. And one of the ways that they deal with this is through banter. Is through a kind of a joking relationship, a joking kinship. First time we saw this, it was a little bit strange to us. For instance, a Wolof and a Serer, if they're meeting for the first time, you might hear something like this. The Serer person, when meeting a Wolof person, might say something like, "Well, I see the Wolof are still getting fat." And the Wolof might answer saying something like, "Well, that's because our Serer slaves feed us so well." You think, "Ooh, this is tough." No, this is a kinship banter. It's a joking relationship that has developed to kind of smooth things over. When we look at this passage, I don't know if the Canaanites and the Jews had a similar relationship or not, but they're in a similar situation where the Romans have come in, they're in control, and these people are having to get along. One thing that kind of hints at this is that the word that Jesus uses is not dogs like these outside curs or something like that. He uses a word in Greek for little dogs, like puppies, like the ones at home that are going to be fed. Right? And you also notice that Christ never refuses her. He never sends her away. He never tells the disciples, "Hey, yeah, kick her out," right? He is called to Israel, but he still ministered to Gentiles sometimes. He ministered to the centurion. He ministered to the demon-possessed man in the tombs who was from a Gentile area. And so when we approach Scripture like this, sometimes there's things we just don't understand. We need to realize we can't approach it from our context. We have to realize that there is another context we're just probably not getting that's going on here. But I don't really want to get into that too much. This is really about this woman. This woman who is throwing herself, humiliating herself at Jesus' feet. Let's say she's a Canaanite. She's throwing herself not only in front of a stranger, but in front of a Jew. She's down there on her knees pleading for her daughter. A true mother will allow herself to be humiliated for the betterment of the child. Another thing that a true mother will do, she will sacrifice all. A true mother responds to a call in her life, and she'll often risk humiliation or even die to save her child. But there's one sacrifice that I think brings pain unlike any other. And we read about this in 1 Kings 3, 16 through 28. Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, "Pardon me, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us. And during the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning I got up to nurse my son and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born." The other woman said, "No, the living one is my son, the dead one's yours." But the first one insisted, "No, the dead one is yours, the living one is mine." And so they argued before the king. The king said, "This one says my son is alive and your son is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive." Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, "Cut the living child in 2 and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, "Neither I or you shall have him. Cut him in 2. Then the king gave this ruling, "Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. Now, we often quote this passage thinking, wow, Solomon's smart. He really saw this through. But think of the mom. Think of the mom. Here is a mother who is willing to give up her motherhood, to give up the calling on her life, to give up her very child. Why? To save the child. That's the mark of a true mom. He was willing to give up everything to save the child. I realize that not everyone has been blessed with a true mother, and no mother is perfect. But I want you to think about something. I want you to think about your own life. Did God bless you with a true mother? Well, maybe she was your biological mother, or maybe a mother figure in your life. But did God bless you with someone like that? You know, we honor these traits that we've talked about. But why are these traits so beloved? Think about it. Responding to a call in one's life. Braving death. Risking humiliation. Being humiliated. Giving up it all. What are these? These are Christ-like characteristics. This is what God did for us. We honor these. We see these in a woman's life because a woman, a true mother, is a picture of Christ. It's a picture of Christ. So a woman, a mom, should be cherished. We started with a verse about a mother cherishing her child. In turn, we should cherish the true mothers in our lives. In the Bible's description of another true mother, we read this in Proverbs 31:28. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Have you thanked your mom? Timothy talked about calling your mom after the sermon. I heartily agree. Some of us, our moms are in heaven, so thanks. But we've been truly blessed because a true mom is a picture of Christ. Thank your mom today. And thank God who gave you that mom. Let's pray. God, we thank you for our mom.